Welcome back, everybody, to our coverage of the Last Chance Qualifier. We're bringing you a matchup of Josh Sokol at 2-1, representing Canada, versus Opeyemi Oloro, sitting at 3-0 and representing Nigeria. Quick little standings update before this game gets underway. We have five players with 3 wins currently: American Puneet Sharma, American Nick Ball, Canadian Dean Saldana, American Sandy Nang, and Nigerian Opeyemi Oloro. Josh, of course, if you missed our coverage earlier, won the NWL division of the Scrabble Players Championship in this very room 2 days ago, and is looking to continue his hot run in this event so far. He has not played enough Collins games to have qualified for the Worlds that way, but I would certainly expect him to qualify here if he can finish in the top 6. Currently sitting at 7th place, but a win here would be huge for helping his odds. A loss would make it very challenging. So we'll bring you some Josh Sokol action against Opeyemi Oloro. Josh's first rack in AF, AQV blank. Yuck. Oof. All right, so the blank, always good to see. I wonder, you can't consider a play like Canik burning the blank, can you? You have to play Fava or Exchange, right, Chris?
You can consider it. If you look at the actual point totals, Canik is going to be 46 and Fava is going to be 20-something. So, yeah, you'd probably play Fava. If the point difference were closer to 30-35 between Canik and the best non-blank play, then that might be something you do. In this case, Fava is a fine choice. You score 20 and hold the blank, so...
And hold the blank is always pretty good, although holding the Q with it, perhaps not. I think an interesting decision there between Fava and Exchange, but Josh electing to play Fava and Opeyemi to respond BCEE down just 20 points. Looks rather bingo prone here, but not quite a bingo for him. And we'll have to see what he chooses to do. I'm most drawn to the play of Beach, B-E-A-C-H, triple up both the B and the H, hold a very stable ERT leave, score 26 points in the process. Chris, would you play Beach, or do you think you'd make a really short play here, something like B-E and F-E or B-E and E-F to hold a very stable C-E-H-R-T leave?
It's probably enough points that's worth taking the points. Like a CHERT leave is really great. The CH together, obviously it's going to either score well and, can be conducive to bingos, but I would probably take the points here and, play something like Beach.
And then a follow-up between the options Beach and Beat, B-E-A-T-H. Would you prefer to score 2 more and hold ERT, or do you think there's some merit to holding the C to give you some scoring opportunity next turn?
Well, the C does make a lot of longer words, but it's probably not better than an ERT sort of thing. Among the high point consonants, C is a really good one. It's very flexible, goes well with a lot of letters. But it's also really hard to hook. So I'd probably play Beach, keep ERT for that reason.
And now, Josh, another interesting position. Do I burn the blank this turn, as Q blank NS is available underneath Beach for 40 points. In the same spot, he could play GENS for 27, holding NQ blank, or he could look at a small exchange out of this rack, maybe holding ENS or EGNS. Though the board not great for bingoing, especially with that G. Chris, are you burning the blank for 40 here?
No, I think I would still keep the blank. Gens seems like a reasonable play. Taking the 27, holding a Q blank and decent stuff. It doesn't bingo that often still. You really need to draw a U with the Q in order for the blank to really act as a blank. Josh, it looks like he's exchanging Q in here. Also really great. EGNS blank is, really strong 5-tile leave, almost certain to bingo. So it's also a reasonable option.
And it's going to pay dividends for him with that great pull. Opeyemi hitting Jared very quickly, a very straightforward and nice play. 33 points for him, puts him ahead 59-20. put Josh to bingo back. He's got the blank Y bingos that hit the beachy spot, Eringos, Eryngos, and groins, Groynes. But also going to take some time looking for other places to play. One bingo from the A, and Fava also plays for 80. But he'll probably look for overlapping or underlapping bingos, especially alongside Jared making a JO play. There are no bingos there, but I expect Josh to take a little bit of time on this turn to make sure he's not missing one.
Yeah, with the patterns of vowels and consonants, you can see something, O, consonant E, consonant S would fit as a 7-tile underlap just perfectly there. So you always take a minute or two to look in that position and see if anything will really go. You see he has kind of his letters in that position for a moment, G-O-R-E blank S. There's no word there, but that's the sort of thought process that you go through looking at a position like this with a complicated underlap that might or might not work.
Yeah, definitely worth the extra time. The bingo from the A, acrogens, Acrogens. Get the G on the blue square, 80 points for that. But it does string a lot of floaters out for your opponent, including putting an S on that last triple word. So would you grab 80 points with acrogens here, or would you rather a tighter play like groins and beachy for 76? Is it worth the 4-point sacrifice, do you think?
It probably is. Acrogens is kind of the automatic play that you just make. Like, if you can hit the triple, then hit the triple, right? It's going to be times 3 is going to be more than times 2. But it's only 4 points. And like you say, there's a lot of floaters. Putting an S on the triple, meaning any 7 will go for your opponent that takes an S. Any 7 will go down that side, ending in the S. Like, that's kind of a difficult defensive play. You're giving your opponent a high quality bingo line that's really easy to hit. So it is worth a couple points to give up and play something like groins instead.
An interesting decision by Josh, but I think that's one that I agree with and one that Chris Lipe also agrees with. So 3 for 3 on approval of that play, as Josh pulling ahead 96-59 after his bingo. And a terrible pull from Opeyemi, ABCTUVW, the first 3 letters of the alphabet, and several letters right at the end of the alphabet with nothing in between. We'll have high scoring options. VAW beneath Jared seems to be straightforward. 37 points. BCTU, not a stellar leave, but if you've got 37, you've got to take that opportunity, right?
Definitely, yeah. And even though the that row 13 under JA is a pretty big comeback spot that Josh could take advantage of, you sort of need to. If you can score 37 and dump VW, do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Josh, we saw him do this during Scrabble Players Championship as well, giving us a little bit of suspense. What is that last tile? It is a Y. So that's not going to help him out. EINOSU, bingos with many consonants, but not that one. And in a tie game, Josh has to decide how many of these tiles he wants to play off. YE beneath VA, JAY, and EWE is 42 points. INOUS is a reasonable leave, but he's also got YOJAN through the JA for 38 and could consider just scoring 2 more with YEN instead of YE. Do you just play for 42 YE? Is that obvious, or would you think a little harder here?
I think the decision between Yojan and Yi is one worth thinking about. I'd probably end up playing YE, I think, just because there's, you're putting that O next to the dark blue square. And the leave isn't great either way. You're still holding the OU. So may as well take the points, more defensive, and then just sort of move on, see what comes next.
The decision to put the N at the end of YE seems marginal and probably the right move by Josh not putting it down, but because he doesn't place it, that will give back a bingo back to Opeyemi through the S. It's a tough spot, but subcast, CUB, or SUBCASTE, plays for 82, only playable bingo for Opeyemi out of this rack. And we've seen a few bingo misses already, but that's a lot of points. That's a big, big spot. Do you expect to see a bingo here?
Um, it's certainly a word that somebody could know and would have studied. It's kind of a critical play. When you miss a bingo with a blank, it's not nearly as bad because you still have a blank, right? When you miss a bingo like this, where it's not an obvious rack, but it has one play that's a huge score. Everything else is not great, and the leave isn't guaranteed to bingo next turn. That becomes a much more critical miss. So, yeah, this will be a big turn.
A big swing in this game as Josh into his INOUS has picked up an E, a good tile to go with those, and a Z as well. So Z could lead to some very high scoring options for Josh, whether or not Opeyemi gets his bingo down. In the absence of this bingo, Opeyemi with the tough decision as well. Do you fish? HUB from the H holds a great ACEST leave, but it only scores 14. Do you play it a little longer? A play like Arbute, ARBUTE through the R in groins scores 33. Or maybe you split the difference with the play like Rebut, REBUT from that same R for 24. Between those options, Chris, what do you feel? Do you think you go for the bingo, go for broke, or kind of score some points instead here?
I would probably go for the points. I think of those, our Butte is probably the best. The problem with Hub as a fish is that it starts to close down lines, which is the opposite of what you want with a fish. Even you're not scoring, you're making it more difficult to bingo. Yeah, the leave is great, but where's it going to fit on the board? Our Butte opens up lines, it scores a bunch, you're pulling tiles out of the bag. Yeah, you're less likely to draw a bingo, but you have half a bingo on the score sheet and then, holding the S and sort of moving on. The middle play is often not the right play. You don't you're neither giving up points nor getting the best leave you can, so it's sort of like the worst of both worlds instead of the best of both worlds. Usually if you want to score points, you'll play Arbute. If you want to preserve a leave, you'll do something like Hub, and sort of trying to split the difference, you get neither benefit really.
Oh, wow. And so instead of Hub, you said you didn't like that because it shuts down bingo lines. Opeyemi making an aggressive play to open bingo lines, just GUB there for 7 points, but sets up his S, leaves very good tiles, and the S and the E at the bottom of the board available for 8 opportunities as well. So Josh gonna crush this spot back by zones. The play of Azurines, Azurines, Josh had set up on his rack, playing from the A through the R. That was blocked, but Josh still able to respond with a big, big play, 56 points for him. And that will put him ahead 194 to 105, as Opeyemi seems to have missed on that fish. Okay is not an okay pull for him. And he's going to have to decide now. He can score major points with it. ZO and OK scores 43 points, but it gives back huge counterplays. And sort of like we saw with VAW, I can score, but then you can also score a lot. We'll see if he elects to go for that a second time here. Do you think OK is still the play, Chris?
There's also the spot putting the K between the two E's. There's some parallel plays that can go in there. Something like, KO there. It's not going to score quite as much, but you could even do something like KOA, setting up the S on the triple line, really going for broke while still scoring a bunch. So yeah, there's some options. Okay, you definitely have to sort of decrement by a few points in your mind because your opponent is pretty likely, if they have any A whatsoever, to hook Zoa, or an O to hook Zoo or anything like that. They're going to play in that spot. That said, it is a lot of points, so we'll see what happens.
One other really cool potential play is Stoke making Gubs, IT, ZO, OK, and NE 5 overlaps, and because of all the blocking overlaps, not likely to get hit back as often or as hard. Stoke is 57 points holding AC. It's hard to notice things like that when you're caught up on fishing, but that could be a huge play for Opeyemi as well.
Yeah, it's tough to stop and realize that 57 is basically a bingo. You don't need the 50-point bonus if you can, play 57 non-bingo and save a couple on your rack. So it's not always about getting 50 points for using 7 tiles. If you can get 50 points elsewise, it's still 50 points.
You can see Opeyemi has arranged Ketos on his rack, Ketos. Keto is a valid 4, but it does not take a back S, only a back L. And that would score 60 for him. It would set up the A to play behind OK, making Oka, but it is not valid. And in 5-point challenge, I could expect to see Josh challenge that. Josh is a stronger NWL player, but he'd have to know that's not valid in NWL. Let me challenge for 5 points and see if it's valid in Collins or not.
Yeah, even if it's he would know solid that's not a thing in NWL, so you would definitely risk the 5 points to check it.
Looks like TAK may be going to be the play for Opeyemi. IT will take his back S behind it, but IT also taking a back A in Collins, setting Josh up for more opportunities here. So TAK kind of a little bit of defense, a little bit of a setup, and a little bit of a fish. CEOS can still lead to some high score or some bingo draws next turn. But Josh, with that A on his rack, can take the spot, though he also has other spots or other plays that do not address the spot. A very strong equity play of AYU between groins and bizones scores 30 points, holds AINR, but doesn't do anything to block the spot. If he does choose to take away the spot, he's likely playing a 6 like Urania or Aniria. So what would you do, Chris? Would you play Ita and Aniria, something long, or would you play a U and keep playing the equity game?
In this case, a play of tack like that, he could have played KA and OK in that spot. So you've got to think he played that in that place for a reason. And that reason is probably he's holding an S or an A to use that spot himself. So I think it's probably worth burning a bit of equity to play something like an Uria or Urania in that spot, just because your opponent has something cooking.
Yeah, and Josh, in agreement with your assessment there, putting down Urania, going to bring him ahead 224 to 151. And Opeyemi, CEOS, I mentioned, might draw him a bingo. Instead, he's going to draw the Q. No bingos for him, and no great opportunities to get rid of this Q. There is the cute QUA and RAITA after Josh's play. That takes a dangerous front A hook, but I think as his game is starting to slip away from Opeyemi, you're okay making that. It is a tough spot, though, and in the absence of that, would you exchange here or try to play through and retain the Q?
Well, I think if he sees that spot for QUA, that definitely needs to be played. If you don't see it, there's probably places to score decently. So it's not terrible to keep the Q, but yeah, I'd need a strong play to not get rid of the Q, not exchange it.
Range play here, Pacer, QOS. I hate the Q and the O together. Some strong anti-synergy there. And no U draw for Opeyemi means he's likely stuck with it again, although QI and PI could be a decent option for him.
Yeah, Pacer is a really interesting play because it opens up that huge potential bingo lane, hitting both double word scores there, hooking underneath the P. It's just that the leave he kept doesn't actually help him use that spot. So that's kind of the drawback. Luckily, Josh doesn't look like Josh can do very much in that spot either. But yeah, we'll see how this goes.
The straight equity play for Josh is YILL at the bottom of this board, EYE and SIS, scores 31 and holds PRT. But with the lead he's got, there's a double-double line open, and he also may be opening a triple-triple. So I was about to get to this play, Josh beating me to the punch, but triply and FY, I think a nice option for him. Don't open too much and address the double-double at the same time. Do you like this play, Chris?
Yeah, I think Josh has to do something to address the double-double line. That's such an aggressive opening that you assume your opponent has a really strong rack to back it up. So, yeah, in this position, yield at the bottom is just, something you don't need to risk. And yeah, you want to address that double-double for sure.
Yeah, and Opeyemi going to have a nice QI play, wasting no time to drop it down. Finally does get to unload that FGOOS. Not the best leave, but hey, you got to be relieved to have that Q off your rack. Josh now, AILLMNN. Not a lot of synergy between those tiles and not a lot of points available for Josh. His best options appear to be plan from the P and triply, or maybe a similar word like plim in the same spot if he wants to score a little bit more now. He still has plays at the bottom of the board between groins and bizones, a play like MILL, or he can play through those E's with a play like linemen, LINEMEN. Chris, what are you looking to do out of this rack?
So, yeah, I think the play vertically, something like MILL, that's not a play for Josh to make. He has the lead. It's not on him to open. That's a play that Opeyemi may make at some point if he has something that fits there. So lineman is actually a really interesting play because, yeah, there's not really a way to salvage good leave out of this rack and without scoring nothing. So if you can move 5 tiles and score 20 points and, bring the end of the game that much closer, you have a 70-point lead after that. That actually seems like a really good play. And yeah, and it would also sort of prevent any plays on that L column making E something E going down to the triple. Like that opening can't happen anymore. The opening that would happen would be down from the L to the triple in the middle that Opeyemi might play at some point, and then Josh can easily block all that off.
Yeah, I love this play of lineman. The more I look at it, the more I admire what it does to the board and what it does all the things Josh is looking to do here. It's tricky to spot, but Josh has great board vision. I think, yeah, he's set it up on his rack. He's already seen it. So I wonder how long it takes for him to pull the trigger, or if he has another idea. I think he was looking at Manila, MANNILLA, to the A in favor, but backed out of that one. And here it comes, lineman. And we're both fans of this play. I like it quite a bit. Put the onus on Opeyemi to get this board open up.
Yeah, and playing 5 tiles, it puts pressure on Opeyemi to do something sooner rather than later to make up this deficit. If you play something like plan, you're only moving 3 tiles. He gets an extra turn or two in the game if you do that a bunch of times, right? So, yeah, that's excellent play on many levels.
Yes, and now Opeyemi really running out of time to open this board up. Looks like he's thinking about Loof, Loof, string that F out. Not the best how to bingo from, but hey, you got to do something. There's the very nice play of Goofus, Goofus, to the S in groins, but that doesn't open up the board. So he is electing to play Loof here, giving himself a lane. And we'll see how Josh chooses to respond to that after a bad pull leads to a rack of AEEILOO. Maybe a play like Folia comes down just to try to address the line. He's got some really good ways to drop some vowels. LEIPOA through the P and triply being one of those, but also clever plays OHONE to the left side of groins, or INANE atop linemen, are both ways to just plunk 3 vowels, making a bunch of overlaps and scoring quite well. Ohone is 14, I named 24, Lipoa 24 as well. Flui, another option, FLOOIE, would block the F as well. And we see Opeyemi has picked up the blank and a bingo from the F, fudgiest. So Josh's decision here, scoring or blocking, is a huge one. But Josh correctly deciding to block the F, and he's going to dodge a bullet from Opeyemi.
Yeah, that's a that's a good choice. Inane is really tempting because you're scoring well, cleaning up, and leaving things open. But um, does Josh need those points? Josh needs Opeyemi not to hit him with an 85-point bingo. So it's a good evaluation of that position.
There is a 9-letter bingo available to Opeyemi. Through the IT at the top of the board. Won't spoil it quite yet. Now I will. You can pause it if you want it, but Digitules, Digitules, and I think that's findable for a player like Opeyemi. That seems like a reasonably high to mid-high probability 8 with an S at the end. If you're going to find a 9, the easiest ones are 8s, which players do study with an S at the end. So that would be a really nice play for him. He's got to be upset that Fudgiest was blocked, but in the absence of Digitules, he's running out of time to open this board up. He's running out of ways to open this board up as well. So I'm not sure what other options are good for him in this situation. He'll need to find the 9 to give himself an in.
Yeah, and it is very findable. Like in this position, what you would do is put the S to the side, see what 8-letter words you can make with the I. And so that definitely can result in something good here. Yeah, they're running out of Opeyemi's running out of real estate. Like if you're going to try and open or prevent Josh from closing, where do you go? Like how do you do it? That whole upper left quadrant is open, but there's not really a good way to get there, given what exists. So yeah, this needs to happen soon. And how many tiles are left in the bag?
It looks like there are 26 unseen. Let's go ahead and display that unseen distribution at the top now. 26 unseen, 19 in the bag.
So yeah, still a bit of time to get the blank down, but not a whole lot of space. This is this sort of board. There's two different ways to prevent an opponent from bingoing, to clog up the board. And we call restriction and exhaustion. Exhaustion is when there's words everywhere and you can't fit 7 tiles in a row because there's other stuff and it's going to bump into it. Restriction is when you can't hook to it, you can't get there from here, right? And this is the sort of board in that quadrant over there is definitely one that's suffering from restriction right now. There's not a really good way to get there. And Opeyemi, trying to open an S hook and develop that quadrant. And so it's going to be Josh's turn to figure out how to block that S hook. And now they're just sort of playing cat and mouse.
Yeah, nice, clever way to set up an S hook for Opeyemi. Giving up a lot of points to do so, but you have to try to get this board open. Josh has a great block in the 5-letter apted, APTED, but I wonder if he's certain on that word, certain enough to try to block that. It is Collins only, and again, Josh predominantly an NWL player. I wonder if he's studied a 5 like that.
Yeah, it's playing with him and talking to him, he always surprises me with CSW stuff he knows. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's seen it as someone who's primarily an NWL player. But the other consideration here is that Opeyemi scored like 9 points, I think, playing Doug and making that opening. This means that Josh doesn't need to feel obligated to score a lot of points, right? He's more concerned with maintaining control of the board. If Opeyemi had scored 25 and Josh blocks it by scoring 6, now his lead starts to shrink and he's going to start to be concerned. But if Opeyemi scores 9 and Josh blocks for 10, the lead is still where it was. He hasn't, Opeyemi is no closer than he was. So, the idea of scoring pressure, that the play you make sort of restricts your opponent's options just by nature of needing to keep up with the score or not allow a lead to erode. So if Josh just plays apt, that's a reasonable block, right? If it scores 5, Opeyemi just scored 9. That's only a 4-point difference. It's not a big deal. If Opeyemi had scored 30 and Josh scores 5. That begins to be a problem. After 2 or 3 turns of that, the lead is gone.
An interesting decision here, and EW looks like the play for Josh, so I doubt he knew the word apted, or maybe just wasn't certain enough that he wanted to risk losing a turn. Again, in CSW, in 5-point challenge, things get challenged very frequently. So Josh to dodge a bullet here as Opeyemi with a great pull, but that X is going to stop him from bingoing. And now he'll have to decide what he wants to do in this game. VEX looks to be very reasonable from the V in VA, 33 points, HIRS, a great leave. Similar option is REX and EWER at the bottom, EWER, for 33 points, setting up the S in another spot and scoring well in the process. But I think if you're Opeyemi, you have to keep the S on your rack here and try to bingo again next turn. I'd be looking to open up this board, but as Chris said, the board exhaustion, very extreme on this board. There's really only that one line left right now.
Yeah, and another thing that Josh might be keeping in mind is that if Opeyemi does bingo ending in S on that 5th row, the first letter of that bingo is going to be in the triple lane. So it's going to be roughly a tie game in Josh's first shot at that open triple. So, that softens the blow a bit if Opeyemi does hit that bingo.
Yeah, I like this play a lot. Set up the S, try to score or threaten to score, but also, scoring points now, keeping a good lead. He does it all, checks every box. And Josh, ADEIOTT, still got to be staring at that lane, the Doug's spot, but not much he can do again. He'll have to make major sacrifices, and the plays he could play seem to give things back as well. So, still not a great block. And I wonder, Josh, now he can't start sacrificing a lot of points as Opeyemi's put scoring pressure on. I wonder what he does to get out of this situation.
Yeah, that's the strength of the Rex play there, is that now if Josh wants to play something like OAT next to DUG to block off the 7-letter word ending in S, now it's a 40, 50 point lead instead of a 70 point lead because of that scoring pressure. So this becomes tough.
No great ways for Josh to score points here. I wonder if you just think about, if you do get bingoed on in the Doug spot, try to keep your rack as flexible as possible and hope you maybe bingo back. Also unseen to Josh, there are only 6 vowels in the bag, so I'm worried about getting into consonant trouble. But I also hope that my opponent might be in a little bit of consonant trouble in this situation. Lots for Josh to think about here. He's probably going to use a good chunk of his time as this is a pivotal turn in the game.
Yeah, and this rack is difficult because it's almost to a bingo, but there's not a really good way to play off 2 or 3 tiles and keep a solid leave. Right? What is the best leave you can keep out of this? DATE?
Yeah,
That's fine, but it's not super the way that ERST would be, or ERNT. That D and the O, really make this a difficult rack to fish from if you wanted to fish and then hope to bingo back after Opeyemi hits that row 5.
tough decision here for Josh. Perhaps a play like Riot from the R and Triply, making OPE and TAW comes down 15 points on that play. Looks like he's found a cool way to score points and no net here, making Taken as well. That's going to put scoring pressure, but again, doesn't do much. Doesn't do anything to block the bingo line. And if he does get bingoed on, he may not be able to hit back. That ADIT leave could be rather inflexible. Opeyemi did pull into a bingo here. I just don't know if he knows this word. The word is lushies, LUSHIES. And I feel like he would have pulled the trigger on it very quickly if he knew the word and saw it. So perhaps going to think about playing slush at the bottom, 41 points, retains the S and puts him down by just 4, or retains the blank and puts him down by just 14. Although now he set up lushies on his rack, not pulling the trigger yet. I wonder if he's not certain this is a word.
Unless you know it for sure, it's difficult. It's certainly not a common word.
Josh will not be able to bingo back through Lushies. His AADIORT rack needs either an N or an R in order to bingo, and he will not get either of those as floaters. So Opeyemi with the big decision. Obviously, if you play Lushies and it gets challenged off, your opponent knows you have both S's and the blank on your rack. Your opponent knows to block that line, and it's all but game over. Even a play like OP would win it for Josh. I feel like if you're even remotely sure of Lushies, you've just got to try it here.
Yeah, there's not really not really a good alternative. Eventually, Josh is going to block that S hook. And it's just been sort of luck that he's had decent stuff elsewhere, or inflexibility that didn't give a good block, and all this. Like its time is limited.
Big decision for Opeyemi, and we'll see what he does here shortly. He has 7 minutes to think about this position, but this game could come down to an end game. Both Slush or Lushies, will make the game rather close, and you'd like to have some time to think through options after you make those plays as well.
Yeah, so Slush and being 40 something would put Opeyemi down by 15 or so. It looks like it would leave 3 in the bag, but he's holding the blank. So that's it's actually somewhat similar to the position we saw Terry in this morning, where she was down by 20, and you think 20 is not that much with 3 in the bag, but it actually, making that up can be a very difficult thing to do.
All right. So rather than Slush, we see HUIS come down, and this makes some sense. You want to hold on to an S to threaten a bingo in the Doug spot next turn, whereas Slush would play both of them off. So one more chance for Opeyemi to pull a bingo here, but one more chance for Josh to try to block this. I do wonder if we just see something like OP for 4 points on this turn.
Yeah, so this leaves 4 in the bag.
Oh, you know what? Looking at that unseen pool to Josh, DEEGLMN STT blank, I feel like even a play like Atria and AG does enough to shut down this board with that unseen pool. I'm not seeing almost anything that would actually fit alongside that. You're worried about overlaps next to Atria, but you're going to need multiple vowels in a row to overlap the T and the R together. So Josh certainly going to pick up on the unbalanced nature of this bag and try to find specific things that would fit alongside a play like Atria next turn.
Yeah, that's a really good point. At this point in the game, there's a small enough number of letters left that you can actually ask yourself, okay, if I make this play, exactly what word will go in this spot? Whereas earlier in the game, you're pretty much making those judgments based on heuristics and probabilities. Here, you can actually start to work out some of the combinations. What's the worst rack he can have out of those letters that will beat me? Does one exist? If I play this and I empty the bag, what's the worst that can happen afterward? And maybe there's nothing.
Several options would fit alongside it, actually. Anything that makes the blank an A or an E. So gleamed or steamed all play with the presence of EA in this lexicon. Gleeman, mindset, elmiest, gleated. There's actually a lot that plays alongside Atria, and it empties the bag. If I'm Josh, I kind of want to empty the bag here. I don't want to give Opeyemi yet another chance to try to draw a bingo here, but I need to do it in such a way that I'm mucking up his options more than just giving him a different line.
Yeah, kind of in a position where, sometimes you have to, close your eyes and swing and hope for the best, but that's probably not the position Josh is in. If there are things that racks Opeyemi can have that may, in a certain play absolutely loses because it opens up an out bingo with an empty bag. If that's in doubt, it's probably better to play off 2 or 3 and try to figure out a better probability win with fewer in the bag, or with an empty bag if he does bingo.
The more time I spend on this position, chat suggesting aorta maybe as a better block that gives back fewer stacking or counter bingos, but I do wonder OP for 4 just looks a little bit stronger with every passing second.
Yeah, if you play short and don't score, how is he going to make up this 20-something point deficit, even holding S blank? Right? There's not that many big spots on the board, and certainly not ones that tend to go out sooner. You could drop the S and make Uranias and Zaz for like 20 points in an end game. That's probably not going to help that much.
Right, and Josh likely to just play above the X and Rex next turn to score some points back for himself. Not many scoring tiles left either. So I don't think there's much to be threatened by after a play like OP for 4. I think in most instances you're still going to outrun and win this game. So aorta, what Josh electing to go with here, and I do think that's significantly better than atria, just because it's harder to end. You're being going EED or EES or AES, EAS, and aorta will empty the bag, meaning this is Opeyemi's last chance to try to get Josh back. He will have one playable bingo alongside aorta, as ST Valid and Collins means Dottles, Dottles, plays for 76 and out. And Opeyemi has seen it. So this is likely going to be game over. Josh doing his best to block, but it's not in the cards. So many overlapping opportunities, and he's going to get burned by this one here.
Yeah, that's tough. And it's difficult to calculate exactly what's the best sequence. A 3 in the bag end game, trying to use a computer tool for 3 or 4 in the bag. There are so many combinations that actually having a computer solve it mathematically is an enormous task. And SSR Del Solar has done some work with Macondo, coming up with endgame and pre-endgame solvers and trying to optimize an endgame solver. And he has a pre-endgame solver that can do one in the bag. It will go through and basically figure out what are the 8 racks your opponent can have and solve 8 endgames, and then tell you, okay, this tile means you win, this tile in the bag means you lose, etc. And it still takes a long time, a lot of computational power to do that. So it's difficult to say with 4 in the bag, is aorta better than OP? Did Josh get unlucky? Does OP lead to a sequence that he's able to hang on and win by going out first in a close game? It's difficult to say for sure.
Yeah, this game exceptionally hard, and you add in an extra layer of complexity with the inferences you're trying to make after Opeyemi's previous plays. What are the odds that he has an S or a blank? He doesn't have 7 random tiles. He's been grooming his rack for a reason. Opeyemi's setup, Dottles has not played it yet, but you saw him set up EST. Perhaps he's looking for better overlapping bingos. Maybe wants to take his time and hit the highest scoring out bingo. I see chat in the heated debate. Has he missed Dottles, or is he just doing his very best to try and find the highest scoring bingo, milk the spread here? Chris, what do you think? Do you think he's taking his time to find the highest scoring bingo, or do you think maybe he hasn't noticed that sneaky ST spot?
The ST spot, the ST overlap can be a tricky one to see for sure. You see RT in a word and you need to overlap it, and you'll automatically think of 2 vowels that need to go there. So you're looking for something ending in EET or something ridiculous like that. But it's possible that, he's seen the word, he arranged it on his rack, but it's possible that that particular 4 tile overlap is not jumping out.
Yeah, chat in a heated debate about this, and I don't know enough about this player or really even this lexicon to know know what's going on here, but Josh will lose to the bingo of Doddles and will win to any other play. So we will see what happens here. One win for Opeyemi as he sets it back up.
He also could be wondering if it's right because dawdle also goes dawdle or dawdlist. So if he's sure of the adjective, like, is it also a noun?
Doddles is coming down. I wonder if this is just a mind game, a way to set Josh on tilt, maybe trying to get a read on him, you know, if he's only 99% sure of Doddles. Or what is this? Gamesmanship? Sportsmanship?
Yeah, I've encountered things like this with African players in the past, and I don't know if it's gamesmanship or just sort of like a cultural thing, where you just stop, take a breath, make sure you're doing the right thing, and then okay, this is definitely it, and finish the play.
Take a peek at that blank designation. Josh is challenging the play, and I thought I saw multiple scratches on the paper as opposed to one swift motion. Do we know? Do we know what the blank was designated as? Okay, it was an O, and Opeyemi does find it, does bingo out, and does win the game. Josh taking a swing with aorta, but Opeyemi does have a playable bingo back. Goes on to win this game after Doddles and the +5. The final score here going to be 402 for Opeyemi, 333 for Josh. And Josh dropping to 2-2 will likely need to win out to qualify for the World Championship. Otherwise, he may be joining me on the headset for a few games.
Yeah, that's the great thing about this last chance qualifier is that anything can happen. It's 8 games. Anybody can go on a hot streak, and anybody can get upset in 2 or 3 games. Nothing is guaranteed coming in.
Nothing is guaranteed in the Scrabble ever, and I'm sure that's a lesson we've all learned time and time again in this game. We'll see if we can cut to the overhead post-mortem sound here for a minute.
With the blank and the square tiles that you might have. Yeah, it's interesting. It was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, she's good. Yeah, Luscious. But I don't want to play sharp.
What did you have?
Luscious, bad matches.
Spell?
SHIES.
Oh,
But I
wow.
don't want to play for me. That point, I'm just looking.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool. Thank you, Carol. You're very welcome. Oh, 900. Did you call it submit as well? Just be careful.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's
your final
just,
score?
it's just because of the camera.
Oh, okay. Your final score.
So 400, 333 is what I have.
You have
400 for you, 333 for me.
Okay.
What do you have?
Correct. Oh man, I can't believe it.
Believe it, man. Believe it. You want? I can do it online.
Okay.
All right, not a lot of post-game banter for this one. You can see Josh ever the good sport, very interesting as he gets slow rolled at the end there. This is the end of our session. To my knowledge, we'll still have the same timing on our lunch break, meaning play will begin again 1 hour and 4 minutes from now, 5 o'clock Eastern, 2:30 Vegas time. I don't believe the lunch break will be extended due to the delays earlier on in the tournament. If that is the case, we'll make sure we put up a banner with the new end time. But we are going to end our coverage right there. I do want to take a minute to thank Chris Lipe for joining us and coming on for 4 games. I'm not sure who's going to be on this afternoon, if it'll be more Chris or somebody else. But Chris, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thanks to everybody for watching. We will be back in about an hour. So make sure you stretch your legs, get some movement going on, and we'll see you here again soon.